Hey everyone, welcome to my channel, Chi the EDNP, Chi the EDNP. I am so excited to bring you episode 8, a very well anticipated episode for ED nurses. It is titled 6 Survival Tips for the ED Nurse. Now, this episode is for whether it be the new grad that is just entering the ED or the experienced nurse that is just entering the ED. This video is going to give you 6 important vital tips for survival in the ED. Let's jump right in. So, your very first tip is sick or not sick. This is the first thing or first thought process every single nurse has to go through when they first enter the ER. Whenever you get a patient or whenever you're in report and shift change, as you're listening to report, start to figure out or answer the question sick or not sick. And what exactly that means is, if I do not see this particular patient within the next 30 minutes, 15 to 30 minutes, will this patient live or die? Could this patient die? And that actually helps you in prioritizing care so that you can see the sickest patients first and assess them, figure out what needs to be done for them, figure out if there has been a change in their status before you see the least sick patient, the patient that is stable. For example, you have 86-year-old female with urinary tract symptoms and blood pressure of 80/40, temperature of 103, pulse of 120s, 130s, saturation of 96% on room air, on top of having, again, urinary tract symptoms. That screams urosepsis. Second patient, you have the 25-year-old with chest pain, perioral numbness, tingling in their hands. That's patient number 2. And patient number 3, you have a 50-year-old right leg pain with equal pulses, normal capillary refill, able to range the leg by themselves, able to ambulate. Which one of those patients would you see first? And what order will you see them? So if you had to do sick or not sick, your sickest is the 86-year-old, then followed by the 20-year-old, then followed by the right leg pain. That's essentially how you go through that process. And that will help you to figure out, again, which patient to see first. Helps you to critically think and prioritize care. Second tip, learn to minimize your steps. I remember when I was a when I was a ED nurse for the first time after having 2 years of floor experiences, the one thing I remember distinctly was I was running around like a chicken with my neck cut off. Now, think about in a 12-hour ED shift, what running around from the beginning to the end of your shift does to you. It makes you extremely tired, and continuing to do that on a daily basis will give you burnout. So you have to learn early. I had to learn early how to minimize my steps. So what I mean by that is figuring out how many tasks can you do in one sweep. You get a patient that is a quadriplegic, has stage 4 wounds on their bottom. You know right away before you enter the room. Let's say that patient also has unstable vital signs, temperature of 102, tachycardic, low blood pressure. Before you enter that room, you know that you have got to grab linen, chucks and chucks and chucks, wound dressing change items, IV start kits, fluids, let's see, Tylenol. Get your Tylenol order from your doc before you get in there. Grab an extra hand to help you roll the patient, soap, water, basin, IV lines. Go in there with everything that you need instead of going in there with one thing. Oh, I forgot this, running back out. Even if you carry things that you do not need, you can still store them in the room for later use. That helps to minimize your steps and helps you work efficiently. When I first started in the ER, after numerous shifts where I found myself running around with my neck like a chicken with my neck cut off, I learned to piece things together in my head very fast. And over time, I became one of the most efficient nurses. I could manage 4 of my patients and not break a sweat and still help all my team members with their things because I became just that efficient. So please, please, please learn, think through each action. Whatever you're doing, think about it. Don't be mechanical, because then you find yourself, doing things one by one, making yourself work harder and increasing the rate at which you get to burn out. Basically, you'll get to burn out sooner. That's tip number 2. Tip number 3, question everything. I can't tell you how many times I have seen an order and I'm like, I don't know why we're doing this for this patient. Let me go ask the doctor why. No matter how intimidated you are by a doctor, you go and ask that doctor, why are we doing this? And that doctor has no explanation for you. You've either caught a mistake or made that doctor think twice about what they're going to do. Doctors manage numerous patients on an ED shift and can confuse patients easily, just like that. So you cannot be carrying orders mechanically and not realize that this can happen. My rule of thumb for me is, if I cannot rationalize this order, I'm not doing it. I'm going to question it. If I look at this patient's clinical picture, their vital signs, what they look like, and their labs, and I cannot figure out why this patient is getting this medication or why this patient needs this particular lab, I'm not doing it. I'm going to go and question that MD about it. And I can't tell you how many times that has saved a life. Moving on. Go to the cardiac arrests, the strokes, the sepsis alerts, the STEMIs, the traumas, the respiratory distress. I cannot tell you how that has contributed or did contribute to making me a top-notch ED nurse when I was an ED nurse. Now, the reason being is, if you never see these cases, you never get proficient at managing these patients, and you also don't know what to do when you get these patients. Things like learning how to manage an ART line, central venous line, multiple central lines, just using equipment, BiPAP, vent. Say your respiratory therapist was not there and you needed to put the patient on a vent. There's no respiratory therapist because your respiratory therapist is on an ICU transport. What are you going to do? You're going to keep bagging a patient for 20 minutes because you didn't know how to set the vents according to the settings that the MD can give you? Go to all of these critical things. When you go to all of these critical things, all these critical cases, you learn the process, because there is a process for every single critical case. For sepsis, there are priorities of care and there's process of care. Priorities of care are, what are the make or breaks in this particular case? If I have a sepsis case, what is the most important thing I have to do for a sepsis case? Cultures before antibiotics and antibiotics. Boom. That's what's going to get your patient closer to improving their vital signs, survival in sepsis. Cardiac arrest. What are my crucial, most important acts, right? If I have a patient with chest pain, excruciating chest pain, what is my most crucial act or action? My most crucial action is ensuring that the EKG is complete. That is the first most crucial action, because that will give you a clue if this patient is a STEMI patient, if there is a STEMI alert is needing to be activated. Make sure my patient has an EKG, reduce my patient's chest pain. So going through those processes like that, learning them by going to them and attending those particular cases will help you get so proficient at these cases, you will be able to do them not only with your eyes closed. If somebody came to you and asked you a question, hey, what do I need to do for this patient? Without even looking at the patient or walking into the room, you will tell that nurse, you need A, B, C, D, E. You need to call this person, you need to call that person. And not only that, you will be able to help your partner. If your partner has this particular patient and you're working in a team with this particular nurse, you will be able to help that nurse get done everything that they need to get done, because you will have anticipated the plan of care. There is nothing like a nurse who can anticipate plan of care. You can anticipate what the patient is going to need. You can anticipate what your doctor is going to need. You are going to be extremely, extremely appreciated. Not just one, two, you are going to be a top-notch nurse. All right, next item on the list is ask for help. I can't tell you how important that is. When you are drowning and you're feeling like you're not getting your most important tasks done or your most important course of actions done, or you're not prioritizing care properly, it is extremely important to utilize the help available on your team. Now, I, for one, can speak on that because I was super nurse. I thought that I could get everything done. I thought I could do everything. I'm the type of nurse, I never ask for help. And everybody say, do you need help, Gigi? Do you need help, Gigi? Nope, I don't need help. I don't need help. I don't need help. Well, I don't need help can get you in a place where you don't want to be, and you can make a crucial mistake that can be life-threatening to a patient. So you cannot be the nurse that will say, I don't need help, I don't need help, I don't need help. Even when you're drowning, you have to understand your own limits, right? You have to understand your own limits. And it's not just for you or about you. It's about providing safe patient care and fostering healing for your patients, right? You have nothing to prove by doing everything. You have nothing to prove by not asking for help. So please, please, make sure you're asking for help, not only to keep your patients safe, but to relieve you so that you don't burn out, so that you don't get to a point where you get so overwhelmed and so stressed, it could start to affect you both mentally and also affect the care that you give. It can make the compassion literally seep out of you when you're overwhelmed. You lose patience for patients, and the quality of care that you're given significantly reduces. So please, please, please ask for help. It's so important. Next tip here is to assess your patient for yourself. I can't tell you how many times you read a triage note and it says, patient is well appearing with stable vital signs, is ambulatory, and you go in the room and your patient is unresponsive. Your patient has either coded or is unresponsive. I have seen this happen too many times. Now, I do not blame triage when this happens, right? Because it is possible that when they did receive this patient was well appearing, this patient was ambulatory with a steady gait, this patient was not decompensating. It is possible that the patient has this decompensated in the amount of time it has taken you to go into the room to assess the patient. So the minute that you receive a patient, please go in and assess your patient. Actually lay hands on your patient. Listen to their lungs. I see too many nurses that do not even walk around with a stethoscope. They don't even have a stethoscope. They don't touch the patients. They just come in, do their charting, hang their meds. Don't do that. Your assessment can save a patient's life. Please put your hands on your patients. Assess your patients. If you receive a patient that is coming in for extremity pain, check their pulses. Make sure that they're neurovascularly intact. You receive a patient that's coming in for shortness of breath and they have heart failure, listen to their lungs. See what it sounds like. I have actually had a patient come in for shortness of breath, and because I listened to the lungs before, when the patient first got there, and I happened to be the only person that did, even the resident at the time did not listen to the patients, because doctors do that. Doctors also don't touch their patients. I was able to catch pulmonary edema because I knew what that patient's lungs sounded like. Now, the patient did not overtly, clinically look like pulmonary edema, but it developed over the course of their stay. And I was able to catch that as a result of listening to the patient's lungs before, and after I noticed a change in their status, I was able to listen to their lungs and alert the physician and let them know, hey, there has been a change in this patient's status. When I first received this patient, I listened to their lungs. Didn't sound like this. Now this patient has rales and all types of bronchi in their lungs. They've developed pulmonary edema, and was able to save that patient's life. Had I not listened to the patient's lungs, it may have been missed. It may have been. So it is so, so important for you to do your own assessment. It is life-saving. It can save a patient. It can save your license. It can even save your physician or your provider's license. I am so happy that I was able to deliver these 6 tips to you guys. If you all can think of any other tips for ED nurse survival, if any one of you guys are super experienced or just started your journey in the ED, whatever the case may be, and you have a tip that I have not mentioned or I have not touched on in this video, please comment below. Please comment. Everybody needs all the help that they can get. We all need to band together and make sure, or band together to make sure that we all survive the ED, both as nurses and as human beings. So please comment. For any questions or any topics you want me to broach, please email me at ChittyEdieNP. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and click the link below to subscribe. Follow me on Instagram at ChittyEdieNP. I'm so excited to continue this journey of exchanging ideas and learning, because I'm also learning. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I will see you next time.